In today's class, we are going to see about skeletal muscle relaxants. And that in our class, we are going to discuss like this. First, we start with types of muscle relaxants, followed up with what are the types of neuromuscular junction blockers, then what are non-depolarizing blockers, what are depolarizing blockers, and what are their uses and adverse effects. Finally, we are going to deal with what is spasmolytics and what are the uses of spasmolytics. It's appear a little bit confusing now, but when the class proceeds, we will be able to understand what is this all about. The skeletal muscle relaxants, as it implies, these drugs which relaxes skeletal muscles divided into two groups. One is neuromuscular blockers, they traditionally called by these names. One is neuromuscular blockers, another one is spasmolytics. Neuromuscular blockers, why it named means, as the name implies, these drugs which act in neuromuscular junction. The spasmolytics which act through other mechanisms and reduce the spasm of muscles. Students should remember the skeletal muscle, traditionally they can be classified broadly into two groups. One is neuromuscular junction blockers, another one is spasmolytics. What are these neuromuscular blockers and what are its types? Before going into it, you should remember what is a neuromuscular junction. You already did this thing in your physiology. There is a release of acetylcholine which act in NM type of receptors which result in opening of sodium channels which result in the muscle contraction. This place is called as neuromuscular junction, and the drugs which act through this area and block the skeletal muscle actions are considered to be a neuromuscular blockers. These neuromuscular blockers which have similar structure to acetylcholine, thereby it occupy the places of acetylcholine in NM receptors. Types are two types. One is antagonist. You know that the acetylcholine which act on NM receptor and causes muscle contraction, and easily understandable, easily if you see that when I use antagonist for that acetylcholine, it blocks the NM receptors and it blocks the action of acetylcholine, and thereby it causes muscle relaxation. Very simple. But one more thing, a partial agonist which have a submaximal activity in the NM receptors also have the effect of blocking the action of acetylcholine, and it may result in muscle relaxations. Based on the type of drug we are using, whether we are using antagonist or agonist, we can classify these neuromuscular junction blockers. When you use it is a purely an antagonist, this neuromuscular junction blockers won't depolarize. It simply block the NM receptor. They are considered to be antagonist. The antagonists are called by the name non-depolarizing blockers. The partial agonist, they produce a submaximal depolarization, but they have some prolonged effect which result in automatically skeletal muscle relaxation only. They are called by the name depolarizing blockers. But both are blockers. One act through the mechanism of non-depolarization, another is act through the mechanism of prolonged and submaximal depolarization. Students should remember that the skeletal muscle relaxants, two groups. One is neuromuscular junction blockers and another group is a spasmolytic group. The neuromuscular junction blockers, there is two groups. The antagonist of NM receptors are called as non-depolarizing blocker, and a partial agonist of neuromuscular junctions are called as depolarizing blocker. What are the types of drugs available as a non-depolarizing blockers? They are classified based on the duration of action. It's very important, this classification, because by knowing the duration of action, we can select its specific clinical use and we can use it for that particular purpose. There are three types: short acting, intermediate acting, and long acting. Short acting like mivacurium, intermediate acting like atracurium and rocuronium. For long acting, pancuronium, pipecuronium. These are the drugs available. For example, if it is a short procedure, we can use intermediate or short acting. Like that, based on the procedures, we can select that particular non-depolarizing blockers. These actions, short acting, intermediate acting, are mainly determined by the mode of metabolism and its elimination from the body. Usually, when it is eliminated through kidney, they are long acting drugs, and intermediate acting drugs are usually mostly eliminated through livers. In the depolarizing blocker, there is no confusion. As of now, there is only one drug is available as a depolarizing blocker, succinylcholine. They are very short and fast acting drug. Students should remember the succinylcholine is not metabolized by liver or kidney. Mostly the metabolization of succinylcholine has occurred through an enzyme mediated. That enzyme is plasma cholinesterase. Not acetylcholinesterase, it's a plasma cholinesterase which requires for the metabolism of succinylcholine. What are the adverse effects? In the case of in the drug like mivacurium, which causes increased histamine release, may result in some kind of allergic features like bronchospasm and hypotension. That type of effect is very much slight with succinylcholine. These drugs which are somewhat similar to acetylcholine, so they not only act on NM receptors, but they may have some act on muscarinic receptor also. Based on that, we get few other side effect. For example, in case of pancuronium, there may be an increased heart rate because they are blocking acetylcholine action. They are blocking parasympathetic effect, result in raised heart rate. But this depolarizing have effects similar to that of acetylcholine because they are partial agonist. So they may result in parasympathetic effect like a negative inotropic or chronotropic effect may be noted. Succinylcholine has two other specific adverse effect. Students must know about this. Because of they may causes depolarization, fasciculation, they may release so much of potassium, they result in cardiac arrest. Succinylcholine may result in increased intraocular pressure. It may increase the intragastric pressure also. Because of muscle fasciculation, there may be a muscle pain with the patient. When we used, these two are very important, malignant hyperthermia and choline apnea. The malignant, when we use succinylcholine along with and fluorinated anesthetic drugs may result in malignant hyperthermia. As I already said, the succinylcholine are metabolized by an enzyme cholinesterase. As I already mentioned that plasma cholinesterase. In some genetical conditions, there may be some defect with these enzymes. So succinylcholine is not metabolized. Prolonged succinylcholine action should be very short and fast. Because of the defect in this plasma cholinesterase enzyme, the reaction may be prolonged, which may affect respiratory muscles and causes respiratory paralysis, which result in choline apnea. This condition is called as choline apnea. It's a genetic condition. You should also remember that sometimes when this neuromuscular blockade is overdose or when the procedure is ended, we want to reverse this neuromuscular blockade and make the patient to the normal, make the patients to come to the normal position. Sometimes it requires the reversal of this neuromuscular blockade may be needed. For that non-depolarizing cases, purely an antagonist, what we do to remove the effect of an antagonist, we increase the agonist. Here the agonist is acetylcholine, which can be increased by using drugs like neostigmine and pyridostigmine. But in the case of depolarizing, we can't use the drugs which increases the acetylcholine in that neuromuscular junction like neostigmine. It may worsen the condition. So mostly for demolarizing blockers to reverse the condition, we use artificial ventilation. We should put the patient in ventilator so that the drug is automatically, naturally, when the process of elimination is there, this respiratory paralysis is the dreaded complication which can be balanced with the help of a ventilator. Interaction with other drugs, the drugs like inhaled anesthetics, aminoglycoside, or local anesthetic which potentiate the action of neuromuscular blockers. So where we use these neuromuscular blockers, where are the conditions where there is a requirement of skeletal muscle relaxation? For example, when we are going to do a surgery, for example, we are going to do some hernia surgery. We want to cut through this abdominal muscle. If it is very tight, it is very tough for us to do the procedure. For that condition, we can, along with anesthesia, if you relax the muscles, it will be very easy to do the procedure. So, in the surgery where there is a requirement of muscle relaxation, most of the surgery it is needed. We can use this skeletal muscle relaxants. That is its commonest use of skeletal muscle relaxants. In other cases, like for example, when we want to put a person in a ventilator, so we can give this controlled ventilation by using this skeletal muscle relaxant. It paralyzes the respiratory muscles so that we can put a good ventilator setup. It reduces the patient effort so that we can correctly set up the ventilator for that purpose. So it can be used in critically ill patient with ventilatory failure. Rarely in the convulsions, when all the drugs are failed, the patient is keep on convulsing, we have no other options, we can use skeletal muscle relaxant under controlled conditions. So we are seeing about skeletal muscle relaxants. There are two groups: neuromuscular junction blockers. Another one is spasmolytics. Neuromuscular junction blockers, two types: non-depolarizing blockers and a depolarizing blocker. And we discussed about non-depolarizing blockers and depolarizing blockers, and we come to the final part of spasmolytic drugs. These spasmolytic drugs, again two types. One is peripherally acting drug and centrally acting drugs. Ultimately, as the name implies, it reduces the spasm of the muscles. So we can see spasm associated with cerebral palsy, multiple sclerosis, many other neurological cases. We can see this spasm of muscles, which can be reduced by using these spasmolytics. As I said, they are classified into two types: centrally acting drugs and peripherally acting drug. And centrally acting drug, it acts in brain and spinal cord, thereby it reduces the spasm of muscles. In this group, we have so many drugs like diazepam, baclofen, disanidine, carbapenem, mefenecin group of drugs. They are used for a neurological mediated muscle spasm, and usually in the sports injury associated muscle spasm also we can use these spasmolytic drugs. And one more group is peripherally acting spasmolytic drugs. The peripherally acting spasmolytic drugs, these drugs which act on muscle itself, not act at a neuromuscular junction or not in brain or spinal cord, just directly act in the muscle fiber itself, and it reduces the calcium release from the sarcoplasmic reticulum, thereby it causes skeletal muscle relaxation. These drugs can be used to reduce the muscle spasm, and one more condition, in malignant hyperthermia, these drugs are used. So before ending the class, I want to give the recap. Today we are seeing about skeletal muscle relaxant. The skeletal muscle relaxant, they are broadly classified into two groups: neuromuscular junction blockers and a spasmolytic. One thing you should remember, these neuromuscular junction blockers are more potent drugs. They used to cause a paralysis of all the muscles. Respiratory muscles are also paralyzed, so the patient need to be ventilated. But spasmolytics are not that much potent. It just reduces the spasm of the muscle, but it won't paralyze the patient. Neuromuscular junction blockers used to paralyze the patient, but spasmolytic simply reduces the muscle spasm and won't paralyze the patient. So neuromuscular junction blockers only used under controlled settings like operation theatre, where the ventilator facilities are available. So these neuromuscular blockers again classified into two types. One is depolarizing blockers, another one is a non-depolarizing blocker. Depolarizing blocker example succinylcholine. Non-depolarizing blocker, so many drugs are there: pancuranium, atracurium. There are so many drugs available as a non-depolarizing blockers. When we come to spasmolytics, here just muscle spasms are reduced. The patients are not paralyzed most of the cases. So these drugs are simply used to reduce the muscle spasm associated with neurological conditions or some type of sports injuries. And again, these drugs are two groups: centrally acting group, peripherally acting group. The centrally acting group, there are so many drugs are available. The tizanidine, baclofen, these are all centrally acting spasmolytics. And peripherally acting spasmolytic, that one drug is dantrolene. And dantrolene is used in the treatment of malignant hypothermia. Hope the students understand the class. Just go to your textbook and prepare that. I want to students to prepare how this succinylcholine and fluorinated anesthetics which result in the condition like malignant hypothermia and this